Once upon a time, in the beautiful city of Lagos, lived the Lawal family. Mr. and Mrs. Lawal, blessed with 4 daughters and a son named Wale, resided in a sprawling, beautiful estate. Wale, the sole male heir, was the undisputed prince of the kingdom. Handsome and charismatic, he was adored by his family, especially his mother, who treated him as if he were royalty. Wale's life was a carefully curated experience of luxury. He wanted for nothing. His every whim catered to. His sisters, though they loved him, couldn't help but feel a twinge of resentment at the blatant favoritism he received. Mr. Lawal, a titan of industry and ranked amongst the country wealthiest, had great plans for his son. Wale's future was mapped out: an elite education, a strategic marriage to the daughter of a powerful shipping magnate, and eventually control of the family's empire. Wale's world was small and isolated. His social interactions were limited, his friends carefully chosen and monitored. His mother, fearful of any influence that might derail her carefully laid plans, kept him on a tight leash. He was chauffeured to and from school, his life a predictable cycle of comfort and control. This guarded cage, however, left Wale feeling strangely empty. He yearned for connection, for genuine relationship, but his carefully constructed world offered him only superficial interaction. At school, Wale was a figure of both admiration and fear. Other students, aware of his family's wealth and influence, kept their distance. He had a close friend, Bode, whose family also moved in similar social circles, but even Bode wasn't entirely free from the constraints of Wale's privileged life. One day, Wale's mother noticed a change in him. He seemed happier. He actually looked forward to school. A flicker of suspicion crossed her mind. Could it be a girl? The thought sent a chill down her spine. Her carefully crafted plan for Wale's future could be jeopardized by some infatuation. Nip this in the bud, whatever it might be. Meanwhile, Mr. Lawal, ever focused on his business empire, noticed Wale's newfound enthusiasm as well. He, however, saw it as a positive development. Let the boy socialize, he told his wife. It will do him good. He needs to learn how to interact with people. Reluctantly, Mrs. Lawal agreed, but her mind was already plotting how to control the situation. This newfound freedom, however, limited, opened up a world of possibilities for Wale. He was eager to connect with others, to form genuine friendship. Wale's newfound freedom at school was a breath of fresh air. He still had Bode by his side, but now he was allowed to stay later, to mingle with other students, to just be a normal teenager, something he never truly experienced. Bode, ever the loyal friend, was excited for Wale. Wow, wonderful. At least now you get to stay back so we can have some fun, he exclaimed. I introduced you to some of my elite friends so you can be friends with them. The school Wale attended was a haven for children of the wealthy. Only the elite could afford the exorbitant fees. A rigorous background check was conducted on every student to ensure they came from respectable families. However, there was a scholarship program for exceptionally bright students from less privileged backgrounds. These scholars, though academically gifted, often faced bullying and discrimination from the wealthier students. The school, concerned about its reputation, was trying to address this issue. Wale, despite his privileged upbringing, was not inherently unkind. He had simply been raised in an environment that shielded him from the realities of the world. He had, however, picked up some of his less desirable habits of his social circle, including a tendency to look down on those less fortunate. One day, Wale encountered a junior student, a girl named Ireti. She was strikingly beautiful, with a captivating sparkle in her eyes. Wale, used to girls fawning over him, approached her with an air of entitlement. He summoned her and told her she was in trouble. Ireti, however, simply apologized and said she was in a hurry, then walked away. Wale was stunned. No one had ever dared to dismiss him like that. He turned to Bode, bewildered. Who is she? Bode, equally surprised, admitted he didn't know. "She looks new here," he said. "If she knew who you were, she wouldn't have walked out on you. But don't worry, I'll find out who she is." Wale went home that day, his mind occupied by the mysterious Ireti. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about her. The next day he saw her again. He approached her, his ego slightly bruised. "Who are you? And who do you think you are to walk out on me?" he demanded. Ireti, unfazed, replied, "I'm sorry. Am I supposed to know who you are?" Bode, trying to assert Wale's status, interjected, "Shut up. Who do you think you are? I heard you're one of those scholarship kids. Has poverty erased your sense of respect?" Ireti, used to dealing with bullies, wasn't intimidated. She knew how these rich kids behaved. She had faced similar challenges in her previous school, where her academic excellence had made her a target. She had to balance her studies with helping her parents. Her mother was a well-known food seller, and her father was a mechanic. Despite these challenges, Ireti constantly tops her class. Her parents, recognizing her potential, were determined to give her the best possible education. The scholarship to this prestigious school was a godsend, a chance for Ireti to mingle with the elite and open doors to a brighter future. They worked tirelessly to support her, her father even taking on an extra job. Ireti arrived late to school that day, having taken 2 buses, when Wale confronted her. She explained her situation. Wale scoffed, making a remark about her using public transport. Ireti calmly replied that she wasn't ashamed of her background. She then politely excused herself and walked away. Wale was taken aback. This girl was unlike anyone he had ever met. He was intrigued and perhaps for the first time, a little humble. But his pride wouldn't let him admit it. He was determined to, he wasn't sure what he was determined to do, but he knew he wasn't going to let this go. Later that day, a disturbing scene unfolded. Wale, along with Bode and some other students, discovered Ireti in a distressed state. She was covered in food, her uniform ruined. It turned out that Bode, taking Ireti's earliest interaction with Wale personally, had orchestrated this humiliation. Seeing Ireti on the ground, embarrassed and vulnerable, something shifted within Wale, a pang of guilt, a feeling he hadn't experienced often, pierced through his confusion. He felt a surge of protectiveness towards her. He stepped in, much to Bode's surprise, and helped Ireti up. "Are you behind this?" he asked Bode, his voice hardening. Bode, taken aback by Wale's unexpected reaction, simply shrugged. "We'll talk about this later," Wale said, his eyes still on Ireti. Wale, feeling a strange mix of pity and responsibility, offered to drive Ireti home. She was hesitant at first, clearly embarrassed by her appearance, but eventually agreed. The drive was quiet, filled with unspoken tension. As they reached Ireti's neighborhood, Wale was taken aback. It was a stark contrast to the world of privilege he knew. The houses were modest, the streets bustling with life, a world away from the manicured lawn and gated community he was accustomed to. "Is this where you live?" he asked, surprised. "Yes," Ireti replied simply. She thanked him for the ride and apologized for her earlier behavior. "I didn't mean to be rude," she explained. I don't want any trouble. I've dealt with bullies before, and I just want to be left alone." Wale for once listened. He saw the genuine vulnerability in her eyes, the weariness of someone who had to constantly defend herself. He felt a flicker of understanding, a glimpse into a world he had never known. That evening, a brand new set of uniform was delivered to Ireti's home. Ireti suspected Wale was behind it, but she didn't want to jump to conclusions. She was grateful, but also a little wary. The next day at school, Ireti was approached by the girls who had been involved in the food incident. They apologized. Their demeanor completely changed. Ireti was surprised but let it go. She knew that something or someone had prompted this sudden change of heart. At lunchtime, Ireti found Wale and thanked him, offering him some fruit as a token of her gratitude. Wale accepted the gift, a small gesture that spoke volumes about Ireti's character. He apologized for Bode's behavior. He was just looking out for me, Wale said, a hint of discomfort at his voice. I understand, Ireti replied, but it still hurts. Wale nodded. He knew he couldn't condone Bode's actions, but he also didn't want to alienate his friend. He was caught between two worlds, two sets of values. He asked Ireti about her commute to school, and she explained the long bus rides. Wale remembered her ruined uniform and the embarrassment it had caused her, suggested that he could help. Is there any easier way for you to get to school? He asked. A bicycle would be a dream, Ireti confessed. It would save me so much time and money. But my parents are already struggling. I can't ask them for more. Wale smiled. Don't worry about it. I'll see what I can do. He left a new resolve forming in his mind. He was starting to see Ireti not just as a challenge to his ego, but as a person, a real person with her own struggles and dreams. Wale's newfound interest in Ireti was more than just a passing fantasy. He found himself thinking about her constantly, her resilience, her kindness, the way she was so different from the girls he was used to. He was starting to see the world through her eyes, a world that was far removed from his privileged bubble. He remembered her mention of the bicycle. It was a small thing, a simple wish, but it resonated with him. He decided to surprise her. He went to a bicycle shop and picked out a brand new bicycle, sturdy bicycle, the kind that would make her commute easier and more comfortable. Saturday arrived and Wale was excited. He had arranged to take Ireti out, a chance to get to know her better. He picked her up and they went to a local amusement park, a place Wale frequently went to, but had never truly enjoyed until now. He found himself laughing and having genuine fun, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. He felt free from the expectations, the pressure of his world. Ireti too was enjoying herself. She was a little nervous at first, unsure of Wale's intentions. His genuine warmth and easygoing manner put her at ease. She saw a different side of him, a side that was kind and thoughtful, a side that was hidden beneath the veneer of privilege. As the day drew to a close, Wale dropped Ireti off at her home. Before she could thank him, he presented her with the bicycle. Ireti was speechless, her eyes widened in surprise and delight. What's this for? She asked, her voice filled with disbelief. You said you wanted a bicycle, Wale replied, shrugging slightly. I thought it would make you commute easier. And, well, it's my way of thanking you for, being you. Ireti was overwhelmed. She had never received such a thoughtful gift before. She thanked Wale profusely, her heart filled with gratitude. She was touched by his gesture, but also a little hesitant. She knew that accepting such an expensive gift would create complications. My dad, he wants to know where I got this, she said, her brow filled with concern. Just tell him it's from a friend, Wale said quickly. He didn't want to cause any trouble for her. Ireti smiled. Thank you, Wale, she said. This is amazing. Wale smiled back. He was genuinely happy to see her so pleased. He had done something good, something that made a real difference in someone's life. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, and it was addictive. She thanked Wale profusely and then bade him goodbye. She stood there clutching her bicycle, watching him drive away with a smile on her face. The next thing she knew, her mother was behind her, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Ireti, who bought you this bicycle? She asked, her voice beaming with excitement. Who was that person who left in that beautiful car? Who was that handsome young man you were talking to, eh? Ireti felt a blush creep up her cheeks. Mom, were you spying on me? She asked, embarrassed. I thought you weren't home. Well, I had to come back for something, her mother replied, her smile widening. And then I saw you. I had to stay and get all the juicy details. Ireti, my sweet daughter, her mother continued, pulling her inside. Come in, tell me everything. Ireti was hesitant. She wanted to keep this, whatever it was, friendship or something more, away from her mother. She knew her mother had been so happy since she got into the school, always talking about how it would help her to marry a rich man. Inside the house, her mother's smile was practically beaming. "You know how long your father and I have been saving up to get you a bicycle for your birthday?" she asked. "Oh, Mom," Ireti said. "I didn't know." "Well, this young man seemed to have beaten us to it," her mother exclaimed. "So tell me, who is he?" "Ireti, my daughter." "Mom, he's just a friend," Ireti replied, trying to downplay it. "I mean, I don't even know if we are really friends yet. He's just, he's just, he's just what?" her mother prompted. Her curiosity piqued. "Mom, I can't tell you the whole story," Ireti said, "but he's just a senior at school. He helps me. He helps me with some things." "Helps you with what?" her mother asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Mom, you don't need to know everything," Ireti said, growing frustrated. "I'm happy and grateful he gave me this bicycle. That's all that matters." "Repay him for what, Ireti?" her mother persisted. "Mom, I said you don't need to know everything," Ireti snapped. "I need to go now. I promised Diola I would visit her. I haven't seen her since I left my old school." "Well, Ireti," her mother said, a sly smile playing on her lips, "if you want to run away, go ahead. But when you come back and your father sees this new bicycle, you better have a very good story to tell him. As for me, that young man who dropped you off, he's your future husband." Ireti groaned inwardly. She felt like the ground should swallow her whole. She quickly got dressed and went to meet Diola. Diola was thrilled to see her. "Ireti, you look so beautiful and fresh," she exclaimed. "I'm sure it's because you're in an air-conditioned classroom all day." Ireti laughed. "You're not wrong," she said. "That classroom is for the elite. They even have 2 ACs per classroom." Diola noticed a change in Ireti's demeanor. "Ireti, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice concerned. "You're not smiling as much as I expected." "Diola, I don't know what to say," Ireti confessed. "It's about this guy." "What guy?" Diola's eyes widened. "Girl, give me the gist. What's going on?" Ireti hesitated, then launched into the story, recounting the bullying incident, Wale's unexpected help, the new uniform, the ride home, the outing, and finally the bicycle. "A bicycle?" Diola shrieked. "Are you serious? The bicycle you've been dreaming of since forever? He just gave it to you like that?" "Yes, girlfriend," Ireti said. "And it's not just any bicycle. It's brand new. A really fancy one with all the accessories, even a helmet." Diola was ecstatic for her friend. "Girlfriend, I'm so happy for you," she exclaimed. "When you left for that school, I was praying that you wouldn't go there and change. But look at you. It's working out in your favor." "Diola," Ireti said, a hint of worry in her voice, "my mom saw him drop me off with the bicycle. She's already calling him my husband. I don't know what to tell her. I don't even know what I feel." "Did you guys kiss?" Diola asked, her eyes twinkling. "Diola," Ireti exclaimed, blushing. "I'm just asking," Diola said, laughing. "Girlfriend, I'm happy for you. But you need to tell your dad the truth. He deserves to know what's going on." "I know," Ireti said. I'm nervous. I'll see you later. I need to go home. I'm sure my dad will be back soon. And I don't know what I'm going to tell him." "Okay, bye," Diola said. "But don't forget to give me all the details later." Ireti smiled weakly and headed home, her mind racing with a mix of excitement, apprehension, and confusion. Ireti arrived home, her heart pounding in her chest. She saw her father sitting on the porch, his brow furrowed in thought. He looked up as she approached, his expression softening slightly. "Ireti, welcome back," he said. "Your mother told me you had a visitor." Ireti took a deep breath. "Yes, Dad," she said. "It's about the bicycle." Her father nodded. "Your mother said it was a gift from a friend at school." "Yes, Dad," Ireti confirmed. "His name is Wale." "Wale," her father repeated, his eyes searching hers. "Tell me about him." Ireti hesitated. She knew her father's concerns about her mingling with the wealthy students. She chose her words carefully. "He's a senior at school," she explained. He helped me when some students were bothering me. He even replaced my uniform when it got ruined." Her father listened intently, his expression unreadable. "And this bicycle," he said finally, "it's also a gift from him." "Yes, Dad," Ireti replied. "He said he wanted to make my commute to school easier." A long silence hung in the air. Ireti could feel her father's gaze on her. assessing her, trying to discern the truth. Ireti, he said finally, his voice gentle but firm. I'm grateful for his kindness. It was a very generous gift. But I'm also concerned. Concerned about what, Dad? Ireti asked, her heart sinking. Concerned about his motives, her father replied. These wealthy children, they live in a different world. They have different values. I don't want you to be taken advantage of. Dad, I understand, Ireti said. I'll be careful, I promise. It's not just about being careful, her father said. It's about understanding the difference between kindness and something else. What do you mean, Dad? Ireti asked, confused. I mean, her father sighed. Sometimes these wealthy boys, they see girls like you as novelty, a diversion. They might be charming and generous, but it doesn't always mean they're sincere. I don't want you to get your hopes up, Ireti, only to be disappointed. Ireti's eyes welled up with tears. She knew her father was right. She had heard stories, seen it happen to other girls, but she also felt a connection with Wale, a sense of genuine understanding. She didn't want to believe that he was just playing with her. Dad, she said, her voice trembling, I think he's different. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch comforting. I hope you're right, Ireti, he said. I truly do. But please be careful. Protect your heart. Ireti nodded, wiping away her tears. I will, Dad. She promised. I will. Later that evening, Ireti lay in her bed, her mind racing. She thought about Wale, his kindness, his generosity, and also thought about her father's words, his concerns, his warning. She was torn between her growing feelings for Wale and her fear of being hurt. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She had to be careful. She had to protect herself. Wale was still basking in the glow of his intentions with Ireti. He felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. He was no longer just the spoiled son of a wealthy businessman. He was someone who could make a difference in someone's life. He was starting to understand the true meaning of connection, of empathy, of genuine human interaction. He had told Bode about the bicycle, carefully omitting the details of their outing. Bode, though initially surprised by Wale's changed behavior, seemed to accept it. He had noticed that Wale was different lately, less arrogant, more thoughtful. Meanwhile, news of the bicycle reached Wale's mother. Gossip traveled quickly in their social circle. It wasn't long before she heard whispers about Wale gifting bicycle to a scholarship student. The whisper was laced with disapproval, with thinly veiled accusation of impropriety. Wale's mother was furious. Not only was he associating with someone from a lower social class, but he was also spending his family money on charity. It was unacceptable. It was a direct challenge to her authority, to her carefully laid plans for Wale's future. She confronted Wale that evening, her voice cold and sharp. I heard about the bicycle, she said, her eyes blazing with anger. Wale braced himself. He knew this was coming. He had hoped to tell her himself, to explain his reason, but now he was on the defense. Yes, mother, he admitted. I gave Ireti a bicycle. A bicycle, she scoffed. Do you have any idea how much that cost? Do you have any idea how inappropriate this is? It wasn't just a bicycle, mother, Wale said, trying to control his rising anger. It was something she needed. She has a long commute to school, and it will make her life easier. Her life easier? His mother repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And what about your life, Wale? What about your future? Do you think associating with someone like that is going to help you? Do you think it's going to impress the people we need to impress? I don't think about impressing anyone, mother, Wale retorted. I care about doing what's right. What's right? His mother shrieked. What's right is following the plans we have for you. What's right is marrying the daughter of Chief Adeboye. What's right is securing your future, your inheritance, your place in the society. I don't want to marry Chief Adeboye's daughter, Wale exclaimed. I don't want to live a life that has been planned out for me. I want to make my own choices. His mother stared at him, her face confronted with rage. Are you being ridiculous? She hissed. You're throwing away everything we work for. You're jeopardizing your future for some girl. She's not just some girl, mother. Wale said, his voice trembling with emotion. She's different. She's kind, she's intelligent, she's genuine, she's everything I'm not. His mother laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You are so naive, Wale, she said. You think she cares about you? She cares about your money, your connections. She's using you. That's not true, Wale protested. Oh, it's true, his mother insisted. And I won't allow it. I won't let you throw your life away on some infatuations. You can't control me, mother, Wale said, his voice rising. I'm not a child anymore. We'll see about that, his mother said, her eyes narrowing. This is not over, Wale. Not by a long shot. She turned and stormed out of the room, leaving Wale standing there, his heart pounding, his mind in turmoil. He knew that his mother would not let this go. He knew that she would do everything in her power to separate him from Ireti. He was caught between his growing feelings for Ireti and his loyalty to his family. He was trapped in a battle he didn't know how to win. Wale, shaken by his mother's fury, knew he needed to talk to his father. He found him in his study, surrounded by papers and files. He hesitated for a moment, unsure how to begin. Father, he started, can we talk? Mr. Lawal looked up, his expression serious. Of course, Wale, what is it? Wale took a deep breath. It's about Ireti, he said. His father's expression hardened. Your mother told me about the bicycle, he said. Wale's heart sank. She's angry, he said. She's concerned, his father corrected, as I am. But father, Wale protested, Ireti is a good person. She's kind, she's intelligent. Wale, his father interrupted. I understand you're fond of her, but you have to understand the realities of our world, our position in the society, your future. I don't care about my position in society, Wale exclaimed. I care about Ireti, his father sighed. Wale, you're young, you're being impulsive. You don't understand the complexities of these situations. What complexities? Wale asked, his voice rising. That I'm supposed to marry someone I don't love just to secure a business deal? That I'm supposed to ignore my own feelings and desire just to please everyone else? His father looked at him, his eyes filled with a mixture of disappointment and understanding. Wale, he said, I want what's best for you. But sometimes what's best isn't always what you think you want. But what if what I want is Ireti? Wale pleaded. His father shook his head. It's not that simple, Wale. Your mother is right. This infatuation, it will pass. You need to focus on your future, on your responsibilities. Wale felt a wave of despair wash over him. He had hoped his father would understand, would support him, but he was wrong. His father, like his mother, was more concerned with his social standing and his business interests than with his son's happiness. Meanwhile, Ireti was starting to face the consequences of Wale's gift. Rumors were swirling around the school, whispers about her taking advantage of Wale's generosity. Some students, envious of her connection to Wale, were spreading malicious gossip, accusing her of being a gold digger. Ireti tried to ignore the whispers, but they were starting to wear her down. She felt uncomfortable, self-conscious. She didn't want to cause any trouble for Wale, but she also needed to be seen as someone who was using him for his money. One afternoon, as Ireti was leaving school, she was confronted by a group of girls led by a particular mean-spirited student named Chika. So, Chika sneered, the scholarship student has a sugar daddy now. Ireti's heart sank. She knew what was coming. Leave me alone, Chika, she said, trying to walk past them. But Chika and her friends blocked her path. Oh, we're not going to leave you alone, Chika said. We are just curious. How much did Wale pay you for that bicycle? Did he buy you anything else? Maybe a new wardrobe? A phone? Ireti's face burned with humiliation. She didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her upset, but she could feel the tears welling up in her eyes. I earned that bicycle, she said, her voice trembling. Wale is my friend. He helps me because he wanted to. Chika laughed. Sure he did, she said, and I'm the Queen of England. She and her friend continued to turn to Ireti, their words laced with jealousy and spite. Ireti stood there, trying to hold back her tears. her heart aching with a mixture of anger and sadness. She knew that this was just the beginning. Things were going to get much worse. Wale was oblivious to the trouble brewing at school. He was preoccupied with his own internal conflict, torn between his feelings for Ireti and his loyalty to his family. He had tried to talk to his mother again, but she remained adamant. She would not accept Ireti, and she would not allow Wale to jeopardize his future. One afternoon, as Wale was leaving school, he overheard a group of students gossiping. He recognized Chika's voice, sharp and malicious. "Did you see her face?" Chika was saying. She was practically in tears. "I told you, she's nothing but a gold digger." Wale's blood ran cold. He knew they were talking about Ireti. He pushed through the group, his eyes blazing with anger. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. Chika and her friends were startled. They hadn't expected Wale to be there. "We were just talking," Chika stammered. "About what?" Wale pressed. About Ireti," one of the girls said. "What about her?" Wale's voice was dangerously low. "We were just saying she's not good enough for you," Chika said, trying to regain her composure. "She's just using you for your money." Wale's anger exploded. "Shut up," he shouted. "You don't know anything about her. You're just jealous." He turned and stormed off, his mind racing. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. He knew that some people disapproved of his relationship with Ireti, but he hadn't realized the extent of their malice. He found Ireti sitting alone in the library, her head buried in her hands. He sat down next to her, his voice gentle. "Ireti, are you okay?" Ireti looked up, her eyes red and swollen. She nodded slightly, but Wale could see the pain in her expression. "What happened?" he asked. Ireti hesitated for a moment, then told him about the confrontation with Chika and her friends. Wale listened, his anger growing with each word. "I'm so sorry, Ireti," he said, his voice filled with remorse. I didn't know they were saying those things about you." "It's okay, Wale," Ireti said, trying to smile. "It's not your fault." "It's my fault," Wale insisted. "I should have protected you. I should have stopped them." "You can't stop everyone, Wale," Ireti said. "People will always talk. We just have to ignore them." Wale shook his head. "No, Ireti," he said. "We can't ignore them. We have to fight back." He took Ireti's hand, his grip firm. "I won't let them hurt you, Ireti," he said. "I promise." Ireti looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude, a flicker of hope. She knew that Wale's support meant everything. Meanwhile, Wale's mother was not giving up. She had tried to reason with him, to threaten him, but nothing seemed to work. He was determined to be with Ireti, and she was determined to stop him. She decided to take more drastic measures. She contacted Chief Adebayo, the father of Wale's betrothed, and arranged a meeting. She proposed they accelerate the marriage plans to force Wale's hand. Chief Adebayo, to secure the alliance with Lawal's family, agreed. The next day, Wale was summoned to his father's study. His father informed him that the wedding with Chief Adebayo's daughter had been moved up. It was to take place in 2 months. Wale was stunned. He couldn't believe his parents were going to do this to him. He tried to protest, but his father remained firm. The decision has been made. Wale left the study, his heart heavy with despair. He knew that he had to make a choice, and he knew that it would not be easy. Wale's world was crumbling around him. The accelerated marriage plans were a crushing blow, a stark reminder of his family's power and his own limited agency. He felt trapped, suffocated under the weight of their expectation. He sought solace in Ireti's company. He found her in their usual spot, a quiet corner of the school library. He sat beside her, his expression grim. "Ireti," he began, his voice heavy. "I have something to tell you." Ireti looked at him, her brow filled with concern. "What is it, Wale?" Wale hesitated, unsure of how to break this news. "My parents..." They moved up the wedding. Ireti's eyes widened in surprise. "The wedding? With Chief Adebayo's daughter?" Wale nodded miserably. "It's in 2 months." Ireti was speechless. She had known about it, but she hadn't realized how imminent it was. She felt a pang of fear, a cold dread creeping into her heart. "Wale," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you going to do?" Wale looked at her, his eyes filled with despair. "I don't know, Ireti," he confessed. "I don't know." At that moment, Bode walked into the library. He saw Wale and Ireti together and approached them, a curious smile on his face. "Wale, my friend," he said, clapping Wale on the shoulders. "I hear congratulations are in order. Your wedding is just around the corner, isn't it?" Wale's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with anger. "What do you know about it?" he growled. Bode was taken aback by Wale's reaction. I just heard," he stammered. "Everyone's talking about it." "Well, you can tell everyone to mind their own business," Wale snapped. Bode, sensing Wale's distress, backed off. Okay, calm down," he said. "I didn't mean any harm." He glanced at Ireti, then back at Wale. "I'll leave you two alone," he said, and quickly retreated. Wale turned back to Ireti, his anger replaced by a deep sadness. "I'm sorry, Ireti," he said. "I didn't mean to snap at you." "It's okay, Wale," Ireti said, her voice soft. "I understand." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. "Wale," Ireti said finally, her voice trembling, "you don't have to marry her. You have a choice." Wale looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair. "I do have a choice, don't I?" he said. "But what if I make the wrong one?" "There's no wrong choice, Wale," Ireti said. "Just follow your heart." Wale took her hand, his grip firm. "My heart wants you, Ireti," he said. "But my family, my responsibilities." "Wale," Ireti said, her voice strong and clear. "If you choose me, I'll be with you every step of the way. We'll face whatever comes together." Wale looked at her, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. He leaned in and kissed her, a kiss that was both a promise and a plea. Later that day, Ireti confided in Diola. She told her about the accelerated wedding plans, about Wale's conflict, about her own fears. Diola listened patiently, then put a comforting arm around Ireti's shoulders. "Don't worry, Ireti," she said. "If Wale truly loves you, he'll choose you. He'll defy his family. He'll give up everything just to be with you." Ireti looked at her, her eyes filled with doubt. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Diola said. "Because if he doesn't, then he's not worth it. You deserve someone who will choose you above everything else." Ireti nodded. A small flicker of hope rekindled in her heart. She knew that Diola was right. She deserved someone who would fight for her, who would choose her above all, and she prayed that Wale would be that someone. Wale found her in her usual spot one day and went to talk to her, and he said he did not know what to do. Maybe I could move in with you," he suggested, a flicker of hope in his voice. Ireti shook her head. "Wale, that's not possible," she said, gently. "It wouldn't be right. It would cause too much trouble for my family." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Wale asked, his voice filled with frustration. "I can help you find an apartment," Ireti offered. "A place where you can be on your own, away from your parents' control." Wale looked at her, his heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ireti," he said. "You're amazing." "We'll get through this," Ireti said, her voice filled with conviction. "I promise." Meanwhile, Wale's mother, sensing his growing defiance, had taken measures into her own hands. She had made it clear to Wale that if he missed his wedding day, he would be disowned. She had even gone so far as to threaten Ireti, warning her to stay away from Wale. The day before the wedding, Wale received a final ultimatum from his mother. "If you don't show up tomorrow," she said, her voice cold and hard, "you are no longer my son. We will have nothing. Do you understand?" Wale looked at his mother, his heart filled with a mixture of sadness and anger. He knew that she was serious. He knew that she would carry out her threats. "I understand," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He turned and walked away, his heart heavy with despair. He knew that he had to make a choice that would determine the course of his life. The wedding day dawned, a day of celebration for the two families, a day of dread for Wale. He had spent the night tossing and turning, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He knew what he had to do, but the thought of the consequences filled him with fear. He got out of bed and went to the window, looked out at the sprawling estate, the manicured lawns, the sparkling swimming pool. He thought of the life he was leaving behind, the life of privilege and comfort. He thought of his parents, their expectations, their disappointment. He took a deep breath, a sense of resolve filling him. He couldn't do it. He couldn't marry someone he didn't love. He couldn't sacrifice his happiness for the sake of his family's ambitions. He got dressed and went downstairs. He found his parents in the living room. dressed in their finest attire. His mother's face was radiant with joy, his father's expression more reserved. "Wale," his mother said, her voice filled with excitement, "you look wonderful. Are you ready?" Wale looked at his parents, his heart heavy with sadness. "I'm not going," he said, his voice barely a whisper. His mother's smile faltered. "What do you mean you're not going?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I'm not marrying her," Wale said, his voice gaining strength. "I can't." His mother's face contorted with rage. "You will do as you're told," she shrieked. "No, mother," Wale said, his voice firm. "I won't." He turned and walked out of the house, leaving his parents standing there speechless with shock and anger. He went to the apartment Ireti found for him, the small sparsely furnished space they had found together. He knocked on the door, his heart pounding in his chest. Ireti opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise. "Wale, what are you doing here?" Filled with determination. "I'm not going back." Ireti's eyes filled with tears of joy. She threw her arms around Wale, hugging him tightly. "I love you, Wale," she said. "I love you too, Ireti," Wale said, his voice filled with conviction. They both stood there for a long moment, embracing, their love a beacon of hope in darkness. Wale's mother was beside herself with fury. She had stormed to his room, ready for a confrontation, only to find it empty. He had left. She couldn't believe it. She called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. She sent him a barrage of angry texts, and he didn't reply. She tried to contact his friends, but no one knew where he was. She finally called her husband, her voice trembling with rage. "He's gone. He's actually gone." Mr. Lara, though disappointed, was more composed. "Let him go," he said. "He will come back when he needs money. He'll come crawling back when he realizes he can't survive without us." Wale's mother reluctantly agreed. They cut off his allowances, froze his credit card, and blocked his access to his trust fund. They were determined to teach him a lesson. Wale meanwhile adjusted to his new life. He had found a job as a mechanic, working alongside Ireti's father. It was hard work, but he was grateful for the opportunity. He was learning the value of hard work, the dignity of labor. He and Ireti were happy. They had a small apartment, a simple life. They had each other. They were building a life together, a life based on love and mutual respect. But their happiness was short-lived. Wale started to feel unwell. He was tired all the time. He had no appetite and he was losing weight. Ireti was worried, but Wale brushed it off, saying it was just stress. One day, Wale collapsed at work. He was rushed to the hospital, where he underwent a series of tests. The results were devastating. Wale had a terminal illness. He needed a kidney transplant, and he needed it soon. The news hit Ireti like a ton of bricks. She couldn't believe it. Wale, her strong, vibrant Wale, was dying. She felt a wave of despair wash over her, threatening to drown her, but she wouldn't give up. She wouldn't let Wale die. She would find a way to save him. Ireti, numb with shock and fear, knew she had to act quickly. Wale's life was hanging by a thread. She was determined to do everything in her power to save him. She knew she had to tell his family, despite their animosity towards her, despite their threats. They were his parents. They deserved to know. She went to the Lawal's estate. She was met at the gate by a stern-faced security guard who initially refused to let her in, but Ireti was insistent. "I need to see Mr. and Mrs. Lawal," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "It's about Wale. It's a matter of life and death." The guard, sensing the urgency in her voice, relented and allowed her to enter. She was ushered into the living room, where Mr. and Mrs. Lawal sat in long silence. They looked at her with undisguised hostility. "What do you want?" Mrs. Lawal asked, her voice cold. Ireti took a deep breath, tried to compose herself. "It's about Wale," she said. He's very sick." Mr. and Mr. Lawal exchanged a look. "Sick?" Mrs. Lawal repeated, her voice laced with skepticism. "He's in the hospital," Ireti said, her voice trembling. "He needs a kidney transplant. It's urgent." Mr. and Mrs. Lawal were stunned. They had expected Wale to come crawling back to them, begging for money, but they hadn't expected this. "Why are you telling us this?" Mrs. Lawal asked, her eyes narrowing. "You're just trying to manipulate us." "No," Ireti protested. "I'm not. Wale is dying. He needs help." Mr. Lawal, despite his anger towards his son, felt a pang of concern. "What hospital is he in?" he asked. Ireti told them, and they immediately left for the hospital. When they arrived, they were met by a team of doctors who explained the severity of Wale's condition. He had a rare kidney disease, and his only chance of survival was a transplant. Mr. and Mrs. Wale was devastated. They had been so angry with Wale, so determined to punish him, that they hadn't realized how much they still loved him. They asked the doctor to do everything possible to save their son. They were willing to spend any amount of money. They wanted the best doctors, the best facilities, the best care. The search for a compatible kidney donor began immediately. Wale's parents were tested, but neither of them was a match. His sisters were also tested, but only one, the youngest, was a potential match. However, she was heavily pregnant, and the doctor deemed it too risky for her to donate. Time was running out. Wale's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The doctors warned that he might not survive much longer without a transplant. Ireti, despite the hostility she had faced from Wale's parents, stayed by his side, never leaving his bedside. She prayed, she pleaded, she did everything she could to comfort him. Mr. and Mrs. Lawal, desperate to save their son, contacted Chief Adebayo, hoping that his daughter, Wale's betrothed, might be a match. They swallowed their pride and begged him to allow her to be tested. Chief Adebayo, still smarting from Wale's rejection of his daughter, refused. He told them that his daughter had moved on, that she was no longer interested in being associated with their family. He made it clear that he would not lift a finger to help them. Mr. and Mrs. Lawal were heartbroken. They had exhausted all their options. They had no one to turn to. Irritating their despair, made a decision. She knew what she had to do. She went to the doctors and asked to be tested. The doctors were hesitant at first. They knew about the complicated history between Ireti and Wale's family, but Ireti was insistent. "I love Wale," she said. "I'll do anything to save him." The tests were conducted, and the results were astonishing. Ireti was a perfect match. The doctors involved Mr. and Mrs. Lawal, who were initially skeptical. They couldn't believe that Ireti would be a match. Mr. and Mrs. Lawal were overwhelmed with a mixture of emotions, relief and gratitude, and a profound sense of shame. They had been blinded by their prejudice and pride that they had failed to see the depth of Ireti's love for their son. They had judged her, condemned her, and yet she was the one willing to sacrifice everything to save Wale. They approached Ireti, their voice trembling with emotions. "Ireti," Mrs. Lawal said, her eyes filled with tears. We don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you for saving our son." Mr. Lawal nodded, his voice thick with emotions. "We were wrong," he admitted. "We misjudged you. We are so sorry." Ireti's eyes filled with tears, simply smiled. "It's okay," she said. "I just want Wale to be okay." The transplant surgery was scheduled immediately. The doctors were confident that it would be a success. Wale, weak and frail, was informed of Ireti's selfless act. He was overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. He reached out for her hand, his eyes filled with tears. "Ireti," he whispered, "you didn't have to do this. You shouldn't have risked your own life for me." "I love you, Wale," Ireti said, her voice strong and clear. "I would do anything for you." Wale's heart swelled with love. He knew that he had found the woman of his dreams, a woman who loved him unconditionally, a woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for him. The surgery was a success. Wale recovered quickly, his health returning with each passing day. He and Ireti were inseparable, their love stronger than ever. Mr. and Mrs. Lawal, witnessing the depth of their bond, finally let go of their prejudice and pride. They gave their blessing to Wale and Ireti's relationship, welcoming her into their family with open arms. They apologized to Ireti for their past behavior, expressing their gratitude for her selfless act. They acknowledged that she had saved their son's life, not just physically, but emotionally as well. She had shown him the true meaning of love, the true meaning of happiness. Wale's parents also made amends with him, acknowledging that they had been wrong to try to control his life. They realized that his happiness was more important than their ambitions. They promised to support him and Ireti to help them build a life together. When Ireti told her parents about the transplant, they were understandably concerned. She was their hope, their bright star. They also understood the depth of her love for Wale. They knew that she couldn't stand by and watch him die. They gave her their blessing, their hearts, filled with pride and love for their daughter. Wale and Ireti were getting married a few months later, a joyous celebration of their love and resilience. They were surrounded by families, their friends, and their community. It was a new beginning, a new chapter in their lives. They faced challenges, of course. They had to navigate the complexities of their different backgrounds, the expectations of their family, the prejudice of the society, but they faced them together. Their love, their guiding light. Wale, transformed by his experience, became a champion for the less fortunate. He used his family's wealth and influence to support education initiative, to create opportunities for those who had been denied them. He became a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those marginalized. Ireti, with Wale by her side, continued to excel in her studies. She graduated with honors and went on to become a successful lawyer, fighting for justice and equality. They built a life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and purpose. They had a family of their own, raising their children with the same values, kindness, compassion, and resilience that had brought them together. Their story became a legend, a testament to the power of love to overcome all obstacles, a reminder that true happiness lies in following your heart, no matter the cost. The girl they had vehemently opposed was the only one who could save their son's life. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. Leave in the comments what you learned about this story. Do not forget to share this story to who you feel will enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please click on the subscribe button to support us. Turn on the post notification to get notified when I upload a new story. Like, share, and comment your thoughts. Till then, bye.